been a troublemaker, I've been a late-night player, I've been broke as a joke, I've been a money maker, I've been a record breaker, taking credit as an educator, I've been known to spit the flows and make it shaky, shaky thing, popping, locking, stopping, let it hang. Watch us as we drop this hip-hop, it's like it stings. We make the whole room drop and everybody sing. We want the funk, we gotta have that funk. We kick it old school, we think we're so cool. We take it back to the past, we gonna act a fool. Up jumps the middle finger, make my yay.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Sports Buzz, the Fanatical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, here live in studio, Comcast Cable, Channel 23, downtown chilly Danbury, Connecticut. Mucho frio, que calor.
This weekend will be
and it's just chilling
ice.
up or chilling down.
Yeah.
We're just getting into the cold, bitter Arctic blast heading our way.
After we
Bundle
get the
up for
snow
safety, as
during
they
the
say.
week.
It's going to be cold. Minus 25 with the wind chill this weekend?
Yeah.
Ouch, babe. All right. Let's say hello quickly to my right-hand man, Mr. Bob Rowe Jr., as we are here live on this February 11th, the Thursday after the Super Bowl. We're all turning the page away from the NFL
The
to
Super
other
Bowl or the
things.
Snore Bowl?
The Stuper Bowl, as it were.
That's a better word for it.
How you doing there, Bob?
I'm good, but it was just a.
I warned you.
I know.
I warned you.
It was the All Manning Bowl.
The fix was in.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Definitely was, especially the way the referees were going. The fix was in.
The whole thing was one big, huge setup. We'll get to it in a minute. Bob's show Spotlight on Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12.
Yeah, I got some former race car driver on this week.
Speaking of racing, NASCAR
Yeah.
Daytona 500 next weekend. Their Super Bowls to start their season. I wonder if the Middletown contingent in our fan base will be all geared up, as it were, to see if Joe Logano can get back on track after he was derailed at the end of last season from the championship, but he did win that 500 last year to start the season.
And Tony Stewart is temporarily out with a
My
back
guy,
injury.
Tony Stewart, right.
So it's going to be interesting.
You can tell the Super Bowl was so bad, Bob. We're deflecting already, talking NASCAR.
Yeah.
We don't even want to get to it.
But anyway, on my show is a former Southern New York Racing Association driver who's now a dirt track driver. And he drives down in Jersey, and so he has two. It's like some of his feature races from last season.
Very nice, very nice. Our man Mike Toohey is in the control room directing the show. His show Expose Cinema, Friday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 1. His special, not his Oscars. Ask him, what does he call his awards show?
What do you call your award show there, Mike? Huh?
The
Olivers.
The Olivers. We'll be taping that sometime next week. It'll probably
getting ready to do your Oscar show with
yes, I'll be taping with one Kevin Gallagher next week as well. The Oscar double, two episodes we're doing of the Oscar preview show. So look for that next Friday night, the 19th, and then the following Friday, part 2, before the actual Oscars.
Any picks you?
I'm still working over my notes. Maybe next week I'll talk about it.
Okay.
A little closer to it. There's some surprises in the Oscars this year. Kind of a weird year. Of course, Mike McFadden is here as well. And Strange Silent Man is in the building. Breaking his silence. Not so much, because he's still the Silent Man. He has lost his voice on New Year's.
Yeah, and still has
it's
strained
February 11th. And we got to get him to a doctor.
But we were also without Connor and Jenna. They're both feeling under the weather.
Not feeling too well. Jenna, who's been doing such a great job for us. Connor, who's been on a little time out. We're waiting to see him again, but they are both out ill. We hope they're watching and hope they're enjoying the show. Okay, so we are live till 7 o'clock. We've already wasted about 5 minutes probably, but 203-792-4101. Maybe Joe Jet Net is out there, or maybe Uncle Buck, or maybe some surprise caller will call.
That would be nice.
You know, you don't have to be a regular call. You can break the ice and do it.
Do we have to get to the boring bowl?
The Stuper Bowl, NFL, Super Bowl 50. Once I saw that it was potentially going to be Peyton Manning's 200th victory in his career, I said, why bother even watching this game?
It just went south.
It's going to be automatic. no doubt about it. Get the fix. It reminded me of Hollywood, actually. Speaking of the Oscars, Bob,
yes.
You know how in Hollywood, they can't come up with new storylines.
Right. So
they gotta constantly remake old movies.
Yes.
Remember that old movie, John Elway going out on top, riding out in victory, in his end of his career after coming up short so many times in Super Bowls.
Right.
Well, let's just write the news story. Let's remake that. Put Peyton Manning in there.
Right.
He's beyond his prime. He can't carry a team anymore, never that he really could anyways. And when it came to postseason play, let's put him on a team and let the other guys win it for him and get the victory for Peyton, as he can't do it anymore. It's the same old story. So it was automatic. Unfortunately for the Panthers, they were the pawns in the whole entertainment game that is the NFL.
I don't know. It looked like he was not. It looked like he was like the Giants out there playing.
Peyton Manning had a good 2 weeks of holiday. He was on vacation, living it up. Partying out there in San Francisco because he was fatigued early and often in this game. Why was he? I was like, is this game at Mile High? I thought they were not playing in Denver.
Right.
He looked like he was gasping for air. Maybe it was the defense all up in his face the whole time. Who knows? But he was certainly out of sorts. He wasn't running. He wasn't scrambling. He's fumbling the ball. 2 strip sacks, an interception. Here we see the punt return. That was a big play. And then we had also the missed field goal.
Which it bounced off the top of the...
Those 4 plays right there provided 21 points of the 24 in the 24-10 victory for Denver in what was clearly one of the worst Super Bowl games ever played. Just a real ridiculous display. If this was supposed to be the 50th anniversary, big, awesome display for the NFL, they came up a little bit short as far as the play on the field.
The only thing I liked so much was the opening ceremony. After that, it went.
I was actually surprised myself that I did end up enjoying the halftime show. I thought it was actually
it was
choreographed pretty well.
It was decent to watch, but
Coldplay I was not excited about at all. And then I wasn't sure how they were going to integrate Bruno Mars and Beyonce into the act. And they actually choreographed it pretty well. Bruno Mars, Uptown Funk, that's a great tune, and that's a party tune. So he turned it up after Coldplay came out, which was a little, not great, but it was it was a decent performance at least. It wasn't anything outlandish, over the top by Coldplay. They were just actually putting on a decent show. And then he came in, turned it up. Beyonce's song I wasn't all that into, but the choreography, and when they went back and forth between her and Bruno Mars, and then they got Coldplay back in the mix as they all wrapped it up, I thought it actually turned out to be pretty good. So that wasn't too bad. Halftime was okay. Unlike former Mayor Giuliani, do I even want to get started on this guy?
Don't get started. This
oh,
we may
my
go off
word. I mean, why is he got to come out with straight up racist comments against Beyonce and rip her to shreds for her performance at the halftime show? Just a disgrace. This guy opens his mouth more times than I don't even know in the last year. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised since he's made racist comments about the President of the United States in the last year as well. So, Beyonce, of course, is not off limits as far as Giuliani goes. Hey, Giuliani, whatever happened to all that debris from, after the horrific events of 9/11 at Ground Zero? Were you the guy who authorized shipping that stuff out of there illegally before an investigation could be done so we all really could find out the truth there and what happened? Maybe we should talk about that instead of all your racist comments. This guy, I wasn't supposed to get started on him, but unbelievable what he had to say afterwards. I mean, she's doing a show that takes place in the Bay Area.
Right.
They're looking at the overall history of that area. Why wouldn't they, pay homage to the Black Panthers of the Bay Area in Oakland in that, situation? And with everything that has gone on this year, especially, with things happening, it's fine for her to make a stand and say stuff like that. But besides, she wasn't even really doing that much. It was just a performance. And I am the last person on the planet to defend Beyonce.
Right.
Believe me. I'm not putting any Beyonce into the cassette deck or the CD player. What do the kids use these days? It's all digital, right?
Yeah, it's all digital.
So anyways, I did get sidetracked. This is how much I cared about the football game, apparently. I got other things to talk about. All right, Strange Man did not give me a stat about the Super Bowl, so I'm going to go, here's your stat of the week in regards to the Super Bowl and how much of a disgrace it is that the Broncos won this thing. 12 straight 3 and outs in the middle of this game by Manning and the Broncos offense. And they are the winners of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Oh, God, the pain. The Patriots, if they could have stayed healthy, they could have cruised to back-to-back victories.
Sounds like something from Lost in Space. Dr. Smith used to say,
how about this, Bob? You know, yeah. I mean, and of course, you mentioned the refs.
Yeah.
You know, they established the tone earlier, and there we see John Elway. This one's for Pat. As I remember, the owner, Pat, you said this one's for John way back in the day. He turned that around. You know, just part of the whole remake of a Hollywood story there. But the refs did establish themselves early with that Cotchery catch. The ball never touched the ground. Who cares if it's moving or bobbled or anything? It never touched the ground. So you knew right away the calls were going to go the Broncos' way, which it did. And there we see, you know, the fumble late. And unfortunately, the Panthers couldn't do anything with it. And then what is with Cam's show? More like choke show and then crybaby show afterwards, not diving for the ball after the second strip sack late in the game when they're still trying to win this game. They were only down 6. I mean, if they put together one drive for a touchdown, they win the game. He gets stripped and he doesn't even dive on the ball for the fumble. Completely ridiculous. And of course, nobody on CBS was going to go after Manning with the whole HGH thing. Nobody wanted to even get into the fact that the report came out this past week that he sent goons to the guy who, you know, was the source in that story. He sent private eyes, AKA goons, to the guy's house. And then coincidentally, 24 hours later, the guy recants the story and says, no, maybe I had my facts wrong. But we all know that the HGH was shipped to Manning's house in his wife's name, and then he sends goons, I repeat, goons to the guy's house 24 hours later. He recants his story. What do we think happened in that meeting, Bob?
It was just, was a...
was there a little, you know, did they have tea and sit down and just talk it out?
Tea and you know, crackers watching the...
Speaking of goons and bribes, your Super Bowl MVP, Von Miller, nobody at CBS wanted to mention the fact that 2 years ago he was busted for HGH, and then he tried to bribe the drug-carrying guy, and he got suspended even more games for that. So there's your Bronco guys. Von Miller, who bribed the drug guy in the who had the test and he got busted for. He's your MVP. And Peyton Manning sends goons to the house to cover up his HGH story. That's what's going on here at the Super Bowl. I mean, is there anything else we need to talk about with that?
No. How about we move on?
Can we move away from that?
Yeah.
All right, good. We're done with the Super Bowl. We're done with the NFL. Talk to me next season. We'll see what happens. All right, let's get into the NBA. We'll get to the Celtics, who are red hot, in a second. But first, we're going to talk about, well, we'll take a second to look at the cheerleaders first. All right, that was good. Okay. But first, we're going to talk about your New York Bricks, Bob.
My Bricks are
who,
terrible.
like 2-3 weeks ago, were sitting at 500, 22-22, coming off a big win against the Celtics. And now they've lost, 9 out of 10, 5 straight. They fall to 23
and then we
32.
do the ultimate thing. We fired the coach.
Actually, they lost 10 out of 11 now, so they fired Derek Fisher. We were all waiting for that matchup with the Memphis Grizzlies. He didn't make it. We wanted to see what was going to happen when he had to go face-to-face with Matt Barnes after the off-season incident where he was at Matt Barnes' estranged wife's house at a barbecue, and the kids called Daddy and said, Daddy, Derek Fisher is here at the house hanging out with Mommy. And Matt Barnes shows up to beat what out of him. And, we were all waiting for that game. They fired him before that game even took place. Why isn't that game? They should have scheduled that early in the season for us. Not happening. But anyways, Kurt Rambis is your new man behind the bench. That's got to make you feel real good, Bob, right?
Oh, yeah.
How's that?
Oh, that feels great.
You think that's going to work out well? What's Kurt Rambis' all-time record Somebody look that up in the control room. It's not good. Where's Strange Man's stat of the week when you need it?
Yeah.
Maybe he could give us that. All right, so the Knicks falling apart. They will not be making a playoff run, and they lose to the Wizards in Rambis's debut, 111-108, when the Knicks had a chance to tie it.
Oh, they had tie. They
Airball?
The ball was up, and it popped.
No good. No good. All right, and they come out after the All-Star break, and they get to take on the Nets, who are tied at 14-39 for third worst record in the league. Phoenix tanking, another team that fired their coach, 2-24 in their last 26 games. And the Celtics need the Nets to finish in that top 2 spot so they can get that lottery overall number 1 pick, because the Celtics own it. And there it is right there. Avery Bradley rising up at the buzzer in Cleveland last Friday night against the Cavs, draining the three-pointer to win it. Huge victory for the Celtics in that game, 112-111 at Cleveland. Great game. And, you know, that was a crazy finish, because they scored 5 points in the last 5 seconds of that game to win it, after they missed a free throw, knocked the ball out of bounds off of LeBron James to get the possession, and then Avery Bradley drills the 3 from the corner. And then last night, Bob, it's been a little say hello to some of their old friends. Rondo was in town the other night. They beat up on the Kings in a high-scoring affair, but last night, overtime thriller, 139-134. They took care of business as Paul Pierce came to town. They received Rondo as he returned. Paul Pierce was back last night with the clip joint, and they beat him. And there was a duel in the Garden last night. Isaiah Thomas, fresh off the heels of his Eastern Conference Player of the Week award, goes for 36 last night. And Chris Paul was also going off. I think he had 36 as well, as they had a shootout. This game was high scoring from the start, high 60s at halftime, and then it looked like the Celtics were falling apart. They had only scored 9 points in the first 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. Were down 7 inside 4 minutes, but rallied to tie it again with 5 seconds left. They tie it to force overtime, and then they took over in the overtime session. So they, Bob, are in third place, 32-23, winners of 9 of their last 11, looking very good right now. Toronto at 35-16 is ahead of them. Unfortunately, they are playing as hot as the Celtics, winners of 14-16. They did lose to the Timberwolves last night, but Toronto is creeping up on the Cavs, only 2 behind Cleveland for the number 1 overall seed. So that is interesting right there. And the Celtics are ahead of the Hawks and the Heat, who are both right out behind them with 24 losses each. And then, you know, some of the other teams that are in position, Pistons, Bulls, and Pacers, have to look out, because the Hornets, led by King Kemba, who also was an Eastern Conference Player of the Week 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, maybe it was 3. He has single-handedly got the Hornets back in contention at 26-26, right behind the Pistons, who are holding on, trying to keep pace here. Andre Drummond, another former UConn Husky, he's at the All-Star game this weekend. I thought Kemba clearly should have been in. Not sure why he's not. I'm not sure why Drummond is in the dunk contest this weekend. He's a 7-footer.
Yeah.
Crazy. But the Hornets 7-3 in their last 10. And behind them are the Wizards, desperately trying to hold on at 23-27. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do it. But the Pacers and Bulls and Pistons struggling a little bit, Bob, to maintain pace. So I'm not sure if they are actually going to, you know, one of those teams will fall out. But the Wizards will also have to climb over the Hornets, who look to get Big Al Jefferson back. Hopefully soon. He's out with that knee injury, but that is not happening. Of course, the trade deadline is coming up next week. Who do we think will, you know, get traded? I'm not sure if there'll be a big deal go down or not. Also worth noting, in that big, you know, shootout last night, it was toe-to-toe. Guess who was in the crowd in Boston Garden last night?
Who?
The marvelous Marvin Hagler.
Really?
Speaking of shootouts and punch-outs, going toe-to-toe, that was kind of nice to see. So the Celtics are drawing good crowds now. Celebrities on hand. Out west, it's the Warriors. Here's your other stat of the week. We'll get to our official Silent Man, Strange Man stats of the week soon. but he's missing out on this. Best start ever in NBA history. How about the Golden State Warriors right now? 48-4.
Wow.
24-0 at home. 42. He did tip us off to this win streak. 42 straight home victories, closing in on 44, the Bulls' record all time. Also, with playoff games included, it's possible that they can catch the Celtics' all-time record for home record in one single season, not carrying over from one season to another. Remember, 86, Boston 50-1, Bob. Right now, Warriors 24-0. But how about this? The Spurs are 28-0 at home.
Wow.
So both those teams closing in on that. And the Spurs at 44-8, only 4 games behind the Golden State, which might help Golden State as they go for the overall record of 72 victories. They'll need 73 to break the Bulls' record because the Spurs are, relatively close, only 4 games back. So it's not like Golden State can let up and start losing games down the stretch because they could potentially lose that number 1 seed. OKC right behind them, looking healthy at 39-14. The other teams in the mix: Clippers, Grizzlies, Mavs, Utah Jazz. We mentioned last week Portland Trailblazers were hot, closing in on 500. Jazz also got hot, moved ahead of Portland despite their loss last night, and they are 500. And the Rockets right behind them with the Blazers a half game out.
We got any college?
All right, college. Let's get to some Strange Man, Silence Man stats of the week before we go men's college basketball, because he has a crush on
the
a
girls.
lady Husky.
Yeah.
He said before the show he's going to marry Breanna Stewart. I don't know. Maybe I didn't hear him correctly because, he did lose his voice.
Yeah.
It was in that gravelly tone he's got, but I think he's got a crush on Breanna Stewart. So we know the big matchup this week, number 1 versus number 2. UConn versus South Carolina. UConn took care of business 66-54. It was the first ever sold-out crowd down in South Carolina's building, ever. UConn's coach, Auriemma, of course, 940th win. We can hold up on the men's shots right now, Mike, if you want. We'll get to that in a second. South Carolina, of course, 22-1 now as UConn beat them. UConn 23-0. Third longest winning streak in women's history, 60 games. Of course, UConn holds the 1 and 2 records at 90 games, which did that beat and/or match the UCLA men's record? I have to go back and look that up. 70-game victory streak they had a little while back. Now they're riding a 60-game victory. Yeah. Before we get to his men's stat of the week, Gino Auriemma, 11th straight game win in number 1 versus number 2. So when they go 1 versus 2, UConn wins it. Breanna Stewart, 25 points, 35th double-double in her career, 9th this season. 9 for 18 field goals, 10 boards. She played 40 minutes, 5 blocks as well. Strange Man's got a crush on Breanna Stewart.
Let's get to men.
Men's, I was going to mention this. Louisville put the self-imposed ban on postseason play this year because of the sex scandal. We have a stat of the week, however. We mentioned last week they beat Duke. That was Rick Pitino, Master P's 1,000th win on his career, and it was at Duke, which was the 1,000th game played for the Dukies in that Cameron Indoor Arena. All right, men's college basketball, UConn, huge win last week. Big second half rout of Memphis in a close game. They turned it around, came up with a 77-57 victory at Memphis. They moved to 17-6, 7-3 in the conference, right behind SMU, who lost last night to Tulsa in a surprising game. So SMU is 9-3, Cincinnati 8-4, Temple 8-3, UConn 7-3 in conference. Tulsa now 8-4. SMU is the only team in the top 25, however. UConn got 2 votes. The only team from the AAC receiving votes at 17-6. Ridiculous. They are at Temple tonight, as a matter of fact. As soon as we get out of here, 7 o'clock, change your channel. Find UConn versus Temple, 7 o'clock. And they're at home versus Tulsa Saturday. Villanova's number 1, Maryland 2, Oklahoma, Iowa, Xavier in the top 5.
Those people
ridiculous.
Were in the top 10. It doesn't make sense.
Let's get to some NHL before we run out of time. Here's your other stat of the week. First time ever in Boston Bruins history, Brad Marchand converts a penalty shot. It was not in the shootout. This was a penalty for a penalty shot in overtime to beat the Buffalo Sabres. Never before in the history of the Bruins had they won an overtime game on a penalty shot.
Wow.
Exciting. Maybe that's why Strange Man still doesn't have his voice, because he was jumping up and down.
Or you're screaming at the TV.
Screaming. Crazy. But anyways, Bruins, not so good in the return of Milan Lucic. As we mentioned, other former Boston players coming back. Lucic and the LA Kings came back. What happened in that game, Bob? 9-2.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Worst loss by a team in the NHL this season. They gave it the most shots since the mid-'80s, I believe it was. Bruins did 50-something shots. Ridiculous. They are still, however, tied for second in the Atlantic with Tampa and Detroit at 62 points. Panthers out in front, 70. Not so good. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10, but those losses to the Kings and some of the other losses not great. Rangers, Bob, quietly sneaking up. Here's some stats. Lundqvist with the shutout against the Penguins, 3-zip. 58th shutout in his career. Most wins in 11 seasons ever, past Martin Brodeur on that list. As they retire Brodeur's jersey, you said the other night in your victory against the Devils. And he has won 9 of the last 12 games he has played as the Rangers trying to get right, Bob. They're in second place with 67 points, and he's allowed only 2 goals in those games. And they're doing it without Ryan McDonough and Rick Nash, who are both out. Isles at 60.2 points. Pittsburgh 61, Devils 61. So that's it for the hockey situation. Chicago out front in the West at 76 in front of Dallas. St. Louis, the Kings, we mentioned at 67, and the Sharks. Colorado sneaking into that playoff spot after missing out last year. Remember, their coach the other year did a good job getting them in before falling apart last year. All right, I guess we are running out of time. I'd like to sit here and say that Denver's the big baller shot caller, but I don't think so. I think it was a gift. I think the whole thing was fixed.
Right.
8 days until catchers and pitchers.
Oh, he just blew his voice.
If we had a voice, there it is. 8 days, pitchers and catchers. He had to remind me.
Yeah.
We'll get into some baseball coming up.
See how our Mets, our Red Sox, and our Yankees.
We'll check out Daytona 500. We'll be back next week live. Thanks for tuning in. See you then.